Okay, we are also live on Facebook right now. For all the
Okay.
attendees who have joined in, just give us a few more minutes, about 3 or 4 minutes before we go live with the webinar. We're just waiting for other attendees to join in. And thank you for joining in today. We'll be back in a bit. So, Digi, Venkat is facing a bit of an issue connecting in. So, we'll
Right,
wait for
right.
another minute and then
Yes, and
I'll
then
just
we can
kickstart it and you can
start.
take over. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so I'm just going to start. Uh,
Cool.
Okay, to all the attendees who have joined in, thank you so much for joining us today on this wonderful webinar. We'll just go over a bit of the Zoom etiquettes that we have and that we generally follow for all our webinars that we hold here at Coastal Impact. One of the things is all attendees, your video and audio is disabled. The reason for that is it can get a bit chaotic if everybody has access to their audio and video. But you can get in touch with the panelists by using the chat window. There are two windows that you will see. One is the chat window and one is the Q&A window. The chat window is only for any technical assistance that you may need, or if you particularly want to ask a panelist a question. But anything with regards to the subject matter that is being discussed today, you have a Q&A window. For any questions regarding that, please use the Q&A window only. That way, all the attendees can see the questions. I can also read the answers and be aware of what's happening and what is being addressed. So yeah, chat window for any technical issues, Q&A window for everything else. Uh, Without much ado, we have with us today Digant, who's a photographer par excellence. He's been on some amazing trips. I'm sure all of you all have seen his photographs, some of the best, most exotic locations out there, and some amazing photographs and amazing experiences. He's going to talk to us today about his trip with whale sharks and try and take you on a whole virtual dive trip about his experience with diving with the whale sharks. And yeah, so what I'm going to do is now hand it over to Digant. You can see his video right there. He seems to be sitting in a very exotic location. Good for him. Digant, if you can just take this over, that'll be great. Thank you so
Thank you,
much for
Sid.
doing this today.
Thanks, guys, and thank you for joining me on this trip. It's a great thing that they have all these international, whale shark and different days. Gives an opportunity for people towards conservation and awareness, things like that. Anyway, so this was a trip way back in 2012, and I had just acquired a lovely, DSLR, and I had all the paraphernalia that goes with an underwater, a photography system. And in my quest to find a pristine place, something which is absolutely unique, away from everything and untouched yet by the corruption of development and construction and everything, I finally found a place. And the place was called Ehe Island, and it was right at the edge of Papua New Guinea at the border. So a part of Papua is in Indonesia, and the other part goes into PNG, which is Papua New Guinea. And as you can see here, this island and this little boat was where I was sitting, and this small little island was about 150 by 200 square meters, about 300 square meters totally. That's all the size of this island was. And to be quite honest, I doubt if there are many such places left on the planet, except places where one really can't tread easily or humans can't even reach. And so this was a really a good, great, lucky break for me. And it I have never experienced this kind of beauty, so to speak. So to get there, guys, it was quite a Herculean task. Principally, you have to fly to Jakarta, which is an overnight trip. And once you reach there, you have to stay in a hotel for a few hours just to refresh yourself, because sometime at night, post midnight, is your flight onward, all right, to a place called Nabire. And amazingly, if you can see in the inset here, there's this little plane, right? That's like a 5 or a 6-seater aircraft. And there's an airline called Susi Air, which you have to take and fly to a place called Biak. So you're going to Jakarta, you're staying there, you're in a hotel. Post midnight, you take another flight, reach in the morning, Nabire. From there, of course, that flight is again via Ambon. So in Ambon, you have to change aircrafts, right? And then you take this little aircraft and reach a place called Biak. The journey on the aircraft was, it was terrifying and at the same time amazingly beautiful. It's like they didn't really fly very high, so it was like just sitting down in a car and taking off just like that. The only passenger was me and the two one technician and one pilot. So it was quite an experience on this aircraft, and the journey was phenomenal. Post that, there was a 2-hour car ride wherein a gentleman met me from Ehe Island. We managed to eat some lunch. I was thoroughly exhausted. And then there was apparently now a 3 to 4 hour boat ride till you reached Ehe. The boat ride was somewhere where they had arranged a beautiful roof. They had kept a mattress and things like that, thinking that I'd be exhausted and will want some rest. But it was impossible to kind of sleep, even though it was nearly now 2.5 days past my travel. And all throughout the boat ride, we had a school of dolphins following us on the boat, sometime in the front, sometime behind. So it was one of the most beautiful experiences ever, just reaching the place. So this is what we reached. The boat, docked at this little broken down jetty, all right, where you can see a board saying Ehe Diving, restaurant. So this was the place where I was supposed to be eating every day. And the beauty was that breakfast was not something which they would cook for you or anything. There'd be like some 20, 30 eggs kept in a corner. There would be a little gas stove, right? Some peanut butter, some jam, and a small toaster. So you had to make your own breakfast. And I was going to be here for 2 weeks. Okay, there was nobody around to cook for you, at least where breakfast was concerned. But what a setting! If you see this setting, it's just absolutely wonderful and beautiful. So this was the main area, also the main area where most of the dives took place, not for the whale sharks per se, but other than the whale sharks, all right? And most of the local Papuans who lived here were trained as dive guides. They had principally a simple method of doing a dive: jump into a spot, go in one direction, turn around, come back the same way. That was the only kind of diving we could possibly do, because they were trained. They were not really phenomenally good at directions or understanding the terrain. Although they were fantastic in the water, I think that comes naturally to them. So it was quite a beautiful setting. And as you can see, there's a little picture here with a rainbow. And this whole area had small little islands all around, and each island had their own occupants. And those occupants would stay only on that particular island. Okay. Ehe was an island which was owned by the government, which is what or where I was. And obviously, these people had been given some permission to run the dive center. All right. And as you can see at the bottom, there's a lovely image of the jetty, how it looked from my room. So this was going to be where I was going to be staying for 14 nights. Okay, guys. And as you can see, very basic, absolutely basic. They want me not to touch or drink the water even by mistake. They provided, huge mineral water bottle every day. And they said, please brush your teeth also with that. Although bathing was with this little brackish, water on the right side, as you can see, this was my bathroom or toilet or whatever you call it. Everything else was done a la carte outside, right? So not the easiest of places. And one had to make sure that this mosquito net was totally, kind of kept within the mattress. And funnily enough, mosquitoes were here only during the afternoons and that period of time. You wouldn't find mosquitoes early morning or late night or at night, which was pretty strange. But being a malarial region, we were warned, and I had already taken a complete dose of quinine tablets and was on a dose continuously throughout my journey just to be safe. So this, guys, was where I was going to be staying for 14 nights. Amazingly, at high tide, the ocean would actually come right up to the room where the footsteps are. And so this was the view from one side of the room. As you can see, there was this little one tree in the middle of a long reef. And in low tide, you could actually walk to that tree, although I did not go right up to it because there was some nesting happening there of seabirds, and I didn't want to disturb them. but all through there were puddles of water where you would see some jellyfish, or maybe you'd see some morays, some fish stuck, And in high tide, you wouldn't even imagine, right? The entire tree, that rock formation would be covered right till the top, and all that you could see was the branches. So I don't know how these birds were nesting there. Maybe they found the system. I couldn't really make that out. And I had amazing neighbors, as you can see on the bottom right. There's this lovely monitor lizard. Every morning it was right there basking in the sun, warming its body before the day begins. And the other neighbors that I had throughout were these beautiful ground pigeons, right? And they were there on this island every day throughout, morning, evening, afternoon, and night. And apparently, this was one of the few islands where, because the locals were trained, they would not kill these birds, for its flesh. So this was a safe haven for them. On top, you can see this humongous big coconut crab, or a hermit crab, I think most likely, but I think it's a coconut crab, sorry. And what it had done was taken up this little bottle, a broken bottle, to protect its, soft shell back. So this guy was huge, trust me. You can, it's like a beer bottle. You can see the diameter. And these guys would be nocturnal and all throughout at night. So one had to be careful not to kind of bump into any one of them. And then, of course, we had this couscous. There were a couple of them on the island, all resident couscouses. They are nocturnal, of course, but you could regularly see them here in the day also, assuming that they perceived the island to be kind of safe. And also through the day, we would see these lovely frigate birds. Yeah, on the bottom right, corner, you can see there were amazing frigate birds through the day, soaring above till late evening. So these were my neighbors for the next couple of days. And as you can see, my beautiful dive center, and that's my towel hanging there, and my gear. They had these 3 tanks. This is all that was there. Okay. So 2 tanks belong to the dive guide. Of course, they said they had other tanks available. I never did see them. And for this camera, where, there's a camera with a K written, they had put in drinking water actually, because all the kind of water that you got there was brackish and a little salty. So that was really precious to me, at least for 14 days, because that's where my camera and the housing would be rinsed. So all very, 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 very basic, guys. Very basic, but amazingly beautiful, as you can see, right? And imagine an island all to yourself. And while I was there, they had about, I think, 5 cabins like the one I had. And except for 2 nights, I was there alone for 12 nights. Nobody else joined us at all. So obviously one has to carry everything. So all this dive gear I had to carry along with me. All this camera gear also had to be carried along by me. So it wasn't easy getting there, right? A lot of weight and stuff like that. So the camera, the gear, the computers, everything. And when you're on a journey like this, and when you are a passionate photographer, as some of us are, you need to be like a lighting expert, you need to be an engineer, you need to be everything, because if things go wrong, you need to know exactly what is wrong, because these are places where obviously you need to manage and repair things on your own. This was also a place wherein you didn't want to get the bends, you wanted to be careful when you dive. And obviously being all alone and away from civilization, and a recompression chamber would be a nightmare to even reach, would probably take a day and a half to get there. So we really played it safe. And it's a place wherein I did not take any unnecessary risks where diving was concerned. Yeah. And so as you just jumped off from the shore, You had some amazingly beautiful diving right there around the island itself. And because it was surrounded by a lot of other islands and it was like an archipelago, and it was quite cocooned from any kind of currents unless you went really deep out into the ocean. I was told that if you could dive out, there were humongously big schools of barracuda and big schools of jacks and things like that. But those are not dives that these guys were trained to. So here we can see a beautiful crocodile fish, right? One of the residents. And this is known as the devilfish or the Indian walker, as they call it. It's totally camouflaged, as you can see. That little fin, the colorful part that you can see is that fin, and it's sending me a warning to say, hey, look, I'm poisonous, stay away from me. Yeah. And this fish does not literally swim, but it walks all around. It has a humongously big mouth when it's, catching a fish, and the action is to, like a vacuum, open its mouth, vacuum in the water, and along with that, the food that it wants to eat. Quite a grotesque and, in its own way, beautiful looking thing. So all this was right there below, around the island. Uh, just below the jetty, you regularly had bait fish swimming in different formations like this. So that made wonderful opportunities, as you can see, for photography. Absolutely beautiful opportunities. And that's what we call a xenia crab. Yeah, a xenia crab lives in this xenia coral, and rarely do you see them out in the open just like that, feeding. The moment they'll see a diver, they would normally just hide within the xenia coral. But out here, they were, feeling quite safe, not probably used to divers. They had several kinds of anemone fish, as you can see. Yeah, all these were right there, just as you jump in from the island. The blue girdled angelfish was a resident there. You could see it just about every day if you were to dive there. That's a little long-nosed hawkfish. Uh, Here on the left side is what we call a pygmy squid. And if you thought a pygmy seahorse was small, this guy is even tinier than that. It's like a small little pinhead. So you can imagine what it took to even take that image. Luckily, it was at this spot and not moving is because it had just got something in its tentacles and was feeding. And so I could get that shot. So all this was also below right there. Here we have some elephant ear coral. As you can see, the dive guide is looking at it. That would give you the kind of scale or size of how big that is. And the rarest of things which you could regularly see at this place is the Burgess butterfly fish. Normally, these are found at least below 90 to 100 meters. Rarely do they see them ever, but in this one particular place around Ehe and Chandravasi, you can regularly see this Burgess butterfly fish. So that was quite a rare and a special sighting. They had all other kind of creatures. They were humongously huge. The island also had banded sea kraits, which I guess would have laid their eggs and things like that. And they were pretty big. As you can see, there's one on the left. And they had a lot of sea slugs, different kinds of sea slugs. And of course, the twin spot goby was a resident there. Normally, they are always, always, always in a pair. Rarely would you see a twin spot alone. Quite some beautiful creatures there. And just below my breakfast station, as I explained earlier, guys, there was this beautiful resident school of jacks, which gave you great opportunities to take amazingly beautiful pictures. I'm a photographer at heart, so obviously everything is going to revolve around pictures. Yeah, and you can see this huge fan coral and how it eclipses the diver. See the size of the diver and see the size of the coral, the fan, and you can imagine how big it is. So you had this kind of beautiful big fan corals around. So a place worth diving and worth visiting. Sadly, as we are working with Coastal Impact, this was a scene which I did see on the island, sadly. And amazingly, and as you know, this was not something which had been thrown by the islanders, but this was something that was thrown in by the tide, funnily. And so, yes, we did clear all this, but I thought it's quite apt for me to show that nothing now on this planet is uncorrupted. However, far away or eclipsed it may be from everything, this kind of plastic is now everywhere, sadly. So I was now very, very excited, guys, because I had planned 3 trips to Chandravasi Bay, which is where the whale sharks are 24/7, 365 days of the year. And the next morning was my first trip. Every 3 days, I had a trip for and each trip would cost a lot of money. So it was not that one could go there. And obviously, there were no dive centers around Chandravasi. So the boat ride there was over 2.5 hours. So I was very excited and thinking in my head, the next day, how would it be? What kind of images will I get? How does it work? What is the system like? All these thoughts going in my mind, and early morning we were all ready. Amazingly, as you can see, Chandravasi Bay here, the average depths where the bagans. Now, bagans, I need to explain this to you as the next image will show you a bagan. As you can see here, this is a fishing bagan or a fishing platform. All right. And this is something which is there permanently, kept by the local Papuan fishermen. And they have 1 or 2 resident guys who live on top of this bagan in that little house looking thing, right? And all around the bagan, as you can see, all these nets are there. Yeah. And in this net, they catch bait fish and they keep it there for themselves to eat. Every night, they throw lights down at the side of the bagan and try and catch squid and other kind of fish, large, small, tuna. And in the morning, one small boat would take that away to the market. So 6 months of the year, these bagans are there. And under the bagan, the depth is on an average 200 to 300 meters. So these bagans are stationed. So this bay is unique to say, as you can see, average depth where the bagans are is 200 to 300 meters. So quite a unique bay with deep, 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 deep waters. And at the same time, the waters don't have strong currents or things like that. Yeah. And so there are quite a few of these bagans, not one, but there were about 30 to 40 such fishing platforms all around. And after a 2.5 hour journey, you reach here. The fishermen, what has happened, funnily and amazingly, is because the fishermen have been staying on these bagans for so long, 6 months straight up every day, they obviously got bored. And these whale sharks came in and started sucking, on the nets below to try and get some of the fish. Over a period of time, the fishermen became friends with these whale sharks because of their boredom. They even revere and respect them. And they formed a relationship wherein they would look after the whale sharks, they would jump into the water, and they would give them fish to eat. At the end of this session, you'll see a short video where you can see all that firsthand. But it's quite an amazing relationship which was unknown to the world. All right. And just about 10 years before this whole place was found, and scientists, especially Conservation International, did huge studies. And so this is the place where humans and whale sharks became buddies, where whale sharks found friends amongst us and felt absolutely safe. So my first trip gave me some amazingly beautiful behavioral shots, as you can see. Here we have 2 whale sharks, and they would all, for some reason, because the Papuans kept feeding them, They did not discern a diver with a camera, thinking that that's also a local guy, and they would come and actually bump into you, right? You would be sandwiched between three whale sharks, and suddenly from behind you'd be pushed by a fourth one to say, kind of, hey, I'm here, give me something to eat. So here you can see this beautiful image, very lovely behavioral shot wherein they are sucking in the water and trying to suck in some of the fish that the local Papuan fishermen have thrown down. Here you can see one of the guys from the Bagan has dived down just to say hello to this whale shark. They've also thrown all this fish to them, as you can see, bait fish. So a lot of people think that whale sharks eat very small krill. No, they also eat this kind of bait fish. All right. We'll talk about some whale shark facts towards the end. As you can see, there's another whale shark behind also. So these locals regularly do this. They jump down, they dive in, they play around with this whale sharks. And in the background, there's a snorkeler who has come from somewhere else, probably from Nabire. So here's another whale shark. There's one behind, a small little guy, if you can see, who's now going upwards and trying to suck in the fish from the net. On the top middle portion, you can see a net where this whale shark is going up to try and feed from it. This fellow was pretty big. Normally, you find middle-aged juvenile whale sharks, and mature adults are very few and far in between. Here's another one, very, very lovely, typical shot where you can see how these whale sharks suck these fishing nets dry wherever there is a small opening, right? And the fishermen don't mind at all. So here's a whale shark who has gone and is sucking on the net in the hope of getting some food. Here's one more shot wherein it's again sucking in some of the fish thrown by the fishermen. All these whale sharks are there 24/7, guys, 365 days. Even if you had to go today to Nabire and Chandravasi Bay, you'll find these scenes happening again and again, over and over again and again. So the evenings in Ehe, we used to play football, soccer. As you can see, the guy on the left in the red t-shirt was my dive guide. The guy in the green pants was the boat captain. In the t-shirt in the white was the helper, and these little Papuan boys. If you notice, all of them have red mouths, right? Every one of the people there, however old they may be, and kids as young as 4 years old, chewed on betel nut. So that color that you can see is betel nut, or as we call pan in India. Yeah. So evenings were spent, and on the top right inset, you can see this little couscous, right? This guy used to be on the tree where we used to play, and he used to be watching us play like this. I mean, imagine an audience like that. Amazing stuff, really. A place I will never, ever forget. Yeah. So evenings were spent like that, and I have yet to see, I know nature has its own play and beauty about things that it does, but here I think there were designer sunsets. All right. Every evening there were sunsets which were absolutely unique, beautiful, different, and the colors that you could see, amazing stuff. So evenings were very, very nice. Really, really beautiful sunsets. I made it a point to sit every evening and shoot as many as I could. So this was what was in store for you every evening there. Beautiful designer sunsets like this, every evening different. And then we had these guys. This old man was one of the best boat makers apparently there. And as you can see in the front of him in the water, there's a little fishing boat, or that's the boat from which we did our local dives. All right. Not the boat that took us to the whale sharks, but the local dives were done with these. Bankas are what they are called. And this is a single piece of wood from a single tree. And see how this old man has carved it into this beautiful shape. And they're expert boatmen. they're expert boat makers, so to speak, out here on this island. All right. And so my next trip was again coming into play, and I was really excited. After having understood how things work, I wanted to try taking some special images. And I was lucky enough to have got some amazingly lovely creative shots on my second trip. So that it was far more constructive where imagery was concerned. You can see this image where it's a split shot, or a half in, half out shot, as they call it. On the top left, you can see some frigate birds and the boat that I came in. On the right is the fishing platform, and this whale shark is there with the sky up above. These shots are definitely not easy to get. And usually, because you are right at the surface and you don't have any bottom, so it's extremely difficult to take these shots. It's the right moment at the right time with the right settings that you can get them. Here you can see this whale shark looking up, and my boat captain is sitting there on the boat, and he doesn't even know that there is a whale shark below him. So this was quite an interesting image with the white clouds, the blue sky. So this was quite a big treat for me, yeah, to get images like that. This typically is what diving there is all about. This photograph actually tells you the whole story. As you can see, there are some fishermen on top. One guy in the red has a cigarette in his mouth, and he's the local fisherman who lives there. And here you can see the whale shark below the fishing platform, or the bagan as I described. It has a fish in its mouth, which it's sucking. Just towards the end of its body, you can see a lot of other fish that they have just thrown in. And a local Papuan boy who took a ride on the boat with us from the island is sitting there on the platform. So this is a moment in time. These shots, again, you have to be there, right time, right place, and set it to get these images. I was very lucky to get such images. Here is one more shot under the nets with half in, half out shot. And here's one more where the whale shark is coming in to suck on the fish below. This is how they live. All the fishermen, they live there 6 months. And these are the fish in the net that they cook every day, every evening, every morning, and whatever little stuff that they can get from the island supplied to them. The rest is all this fish that they live on. And so this was another amazing image. Here, our local Papuan dive guide from my island, for some reason, he always wore this single screen mask, which is normally used for modeling, but he preferred using that, saying he could see much more clearer with it. And here you can see him actually putting fish in the whale shark's mouth. There was quite a big controversy on Facebook once when I had put images like this, and people had come back to me saying that why is it that there are people feeding whale sharks, and what is it that you are promoting? A lot of controversy there, but little did they know that this is something which is an amazing happening in Chandravasi Bay. Here's one more where he has actually taken off his dive suit, and this little juvenile whale shark has come. The little boy who took a ride from us has borrowed his mask and is now checking out the whale shark. So they are fascinated by these creatures and have become friends with them. My third and final trip was, to me, in a way, not as constructive, all right, but quite a good trip in as much as that there was a huge group of divers that came in that day. Unfortunately or fortunately for me, but that also gave me an opportunity to take images to showcase, divers along with the whale sharks. So looking at it as a half glass full, I was quite happy to get some of the shots on my third and final trip. Here you can see these beautiful two whale sharks, and in the middle is a diver. I think there are liverboards. Liverboards are boats or ships on which divers stay for several nights in a row and jump off the boat morning, evening, afternoon, and night and dive throughout. So this was one of the liverboards that had come there. It was one of the only one that was operating in those days. And so we had a lot of divers on that day. So here you can see this diver is trying to take an image of this huge whale shark, and he's eclipsed. So quite a nice image from a scale perspective. And this to me was a very funny image, because you can see these two guys on the left as if looking in awe at this huge whale shark. And this guy on the right was trying to adjust or set his camera, little knowing that the whale shark was right behind him. I mean, I thought this was quite an interesting image, and tells a story all by itself. So yes, I got shots like this on the last trip. One of the guys who had come there requested that, can you please take a shot if I dive down with a whale shark? So this is one of the shots. This guy became a friend of mine. He's from Hong Kong, who arranges dive trips all over the world. And he had got people from Hong Kong who were on that liveaboard. So here's one more image. Now, this image actually tells you and shows you, right, how whale sharks feed. You can see the whale shark has opened its mouth, right? And it's vacuuming the water. Just by the sheer action of opening its mouth, all the water is now rushing in, right? And you can literally see the whole action happening in this image. And from the side of its gills, it throws out, and it has this, these teeth, or like ballenes, or however you call them, which filters out and keeps all the food in and throws the water out back. So this is a typical action. You can see a lot of these fish, or remoras as you call it, below the whale shark. And there were a lot of these remoras all around. I was told by the fishing guys that if I came there and dived with them in the night, it's quite an experience, because at that time you could even see tuna and a lot of squid, and maybe have some more action. But it was practically impossible, although I did request the boat guys, can we sleep overnight, and I could just jump in once in the night and go back in the morning, but they refused to do that. I respected that. Post my trip, I think Conservation International started diving there in the night, and have got some amazing footage. So the one thing, guys, I must say here, and I thought I should talk a bit about it. All of us who are divers, some of us passionate, some of us holiday divers or whatever, but there was something which I experienced here. And each dive, okay, first of all, guys, this is, sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but this is one of the few places in the world, I think the only one, if I'm not mistaken, where you are allowed to dive, which is scuba with a tank and the whale sharks. Okay, nowhere else, including Oslo or in Mexico, there are other places where all these whale sharks congregate, are you ever allowed to jump in with a scuba tank. So very special place indeed. You are privileged to be able to have been here with a scuba tank. And the whale sharks, because they have become so friendly, are okay with the whole system and action, so they are fine. Each dive, because you are hardly diving in 5 to 7 meters of water throughout your dive, lasted over 2 hours, all right, on one tank. And let me say one thing, during those 2 hours, you reached a state of what yogis call ekagrata. Ekagrata means one-pointedness, or with no other thought in your mind except that moment in time, that present moment. And every time, and this was only 3 times that I could go here, 6 hours is what I would have spent diving. But trust me when I tell you guys that those 6 hours, right, were such that every time I came up back on the boat is only when I realized that, oh, I'm back to reality. I had forgotten everything else around. I had no other thought but that single moment of 2 hours, which felt like a split second. So this state of ekagrata is something which was amazing. It was very special. One really was not uh, unduly worried about the dive per se, because you were hardly in 5 meters of water, right? So everything worked towards you concentrating on what you were doing with no other thought in your mind. So I'm now going to play a short video, which is hardly 2 minutes, guys. We are reaching 8:15, 8:16. So I'm going to cut it out now a little short. And the short video will actually give you a first-hand glimpse and view into what goes on. And everything that I spoke about, how the whale sharks eat, the local Papuans, how they are in the water. They are actually like fish in the water. They live on islands. Water is the way of their life. So this little video of hardly 2 minutes will now tell you and give you a first-hand idea of what all this was really about.
Digant, there is no sound. Is there sound to the video?
Yes, yes. I will just pause. I'll go back. Hold on. Have I muted my sound? No. Okay, I'll increase the volume. Sid?
Uh,
Hello?
yeah, okay. Yeah,
I'll
okay.
just increase the volume. Just hopefully, let me just see. I'll just put it on full. And I'm going to play that again. Just tell me now. Can you hear that now?
No. So what you're going to have to do is just pause the video for a second.
Yeah. Okay, I have.
Uh, when you
From
go
my end,
to
everything is all right. Go tell me.
right. So when if you see that mute icon there, where you can mute
Yes,
and unmute,
yes, yes,
there's an up arrow next to it. Just click that,
yes.
and maybe
Built-in input
there
line in.
in audio
the-
settings,
Okay, yes.
uh, in audio, maybe if you go to video,
Yeah, I got it. I got
uh,
it. I got it. The input volume is quite low, actually. Maybe I could increase that. It's automatic. Output volume is on full. It's just
uh,
some background music, to be honest. It's not like I'm giving a commentary on the video. So even if the music doesn't play on a worst case scenario,
okay, no problem. Then just go ahead. No stress.
yeah, because I have put subtitles there to tell them what is happening. I don't know
Sure.
why it's not playing otherwise. Use separate audio device. I think everything seems all right. Sid, I've done this before,
Okay.
so nothing. Okay,
ठीक है,
so
carry
I'm
on.
going to play it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So guys, I'm sure all of you all saw that video. And there was that moment, if you saw, where this humongously big whale shark went up to this local Papuan guide, right? And how the guide just, hit it on the nose as if it's like a little puppy dog. And you won't believe it. All whale sharks, nearly most of them did this action. Vertically, they would go up to the Papuan dive guides and start swaying their heads sideways, just like in that video. And the whale, and they would actually, I wouldn't want to use the word, but implore and adjure, the dive guide to give them food. So you saw that live. I thought this is a phenomenal tribute to the whale sharks on an International Whale Shark Day, and that people look after them. Here are some facts, interesting facts about the whale sharks there. I'm sorry. Let me go back. Okay. So most whale sharks have lifespans about 40 to 50 years. Yeah, as you can read. Their length is directly in proportion to their age and can be up to 18 meters long. That's humongous. Okay, it's like a single decker BST bus is not as long. Conservation International is running a tagging program. Actually, if you guys hunt for Conservation International, they have a tagging program for these whale sharks, and you can live track each tag on their website. So if you guys are really interested in doing something like that, you can go on to Conservation International, search for Chandravasi Bay whale sharks, and you'll find this tagging program. They found that most of these whale sharks live there year round. Some individuals journey out into other parts of the Pacific, but the intriguing part is that even though they journey out, they always come back, and they will repeat this behavior every year. Some more facts about whale sharks, which I would actually like to share with you, is that whale sharks are ovoviviparous, as in they don't give birth to life. They actually have eggs within them that give birth to the live ones within their body, and then they feed within the whale sharks, and then they give birth to the live youngs. Nobody knows where whale sharks yet give birth, although they have some hint that it may be in Galapagos. All right. They have not yet found whale shark babies except twice or thrice, about 38 centimeters somewhere in Philippines once, and recently I think in Cuba or Costa Rica, I'm not sure, just two babies. So nobody knows much about these creatures at all, their mating behavior, where do they give birth, etc., etc. Yeah. Now, even though they have enough food supply through the year, why they migrate from Chandravasi Bay is not known. And there can be two reasons, either to mate or to find food, but food is abundantly available here through the year. There's only one remaining reason, which is to mate. But then most sharks at Chandravasi are juveniles and not ready to mate. So this is another mystery. Nobody knows what happens, where they go. And so therefore the tagging program probably will give them a lot of input and answers to this. They actually can dive very deep. The satellite tag has shown that Moby, a 15-foot male, has one of the deepest recorded dives of any at nearly 6,000 feet, which is more than a mile beneath the water surface. They disperse periodically in different directions, covering distances of up to 1,000 miles, often returning to home waters in a matter of weeks. Once again, nobody knows where, what, how. So anyway, these are things which they should hopefully be able to give us answers to. This is a concern for most whale sharks all over the world. This applies to worldwide populations also. The migration patterns often overlap with shipping lines and major fisheries, so they result in them being accidentally killed or directly targeted by illegal fishers. Nowadays, with the sharks depleting, they don't mind even using these fins of whale sharks. Microplastics is another concern in the ocean. The biggest fish often feed on the smallest things like plankton or bait fish. And because they are filter feeders, meaning they go around and suck in huge quantities of water to filter out food, they're accidentally likely to suck in a lot of microplastics. So they are again doing a research program, and you could check that out. That's about it, guys. Thank you so much. I think it's time. It's 8:25, and I hope you enjoyed this journey. Sadly, I do need to add that this island, which belonged to the government, was taken away a few years after I went there. And Pertamina, which is the local petroleum company, took over the island, and now they are looking around for oil and gas. That's the state of the world. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you
Diggy.
so much, Diggy, for doing this. Good. Venkat, you're on. I'm going to go mute. Thank you.
I'm finally back. Okay, sorry guys. I've had no end of Wi-Fi troubles today. But I think it was fabulous of Diggy to agree to this. We locked him in like 2 months ago because today is International Whale Shark Day. And I think he's given us quite a lot of information about them. I think he's already mentioned it, but I will again mention that this is the largest fish that lives in the sea. So even though it's called a whale, it is not actually a whale, it's a fish. And it's an amazing thing. We've actually dived with them also in a place called Oslo in Philippines. In fact, we were snorkeling with them there. And Diggy also got some fantastic photographs from there. And it was absolutely magical to actually dive with them. So to be next to an animal which is so huge and yet so gentle, it's quite amazing. So, I think everyone should experience that at least once. And of course, we have a passive interaction with them, so we don't really touch them or anything like that, but they come really close. And even the tail, when it is going past you, they are so mindful that the tail actually never touches you. So I'm sure Diggy has also experienced that.
Which is amazing. Yes, yes, it's amazing. And this
So
huge 14-meter behemoths actually come towards you, but they pass you by only an inch of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the control is incredible, and they're very, very gentle. And of course, thankfully for us, we don't figure on their diet, which is
Yeah.
which is a good thing, because otherwise you would really get worried. I still remember Diggy in Oslo. I don't know if you noticed. I was busy filming one, which was going up like a puppy dog, like you said, to the coracle,
Exactly. Yes, yes,
and
yes, yes.
that guy was feeding it a lot of shrimps.
Correct.
And I actually felt a pressure wave right next to me. And when I turned my face, there was like a 16-meter whale shark
Yes. Yeah.
cruising past me. And I didn't even, like we were talking about the guy who was fiddling with his camera.
Yeah.
I was in the same situation where I didn't even know this thing.
And I thought that image was really interesting. Didn't you see?
Yeah,
Because that guy, poor guy is
totally
fiddling and he
oblivious.
doesn't even know. Yeah, oblivious. There's a huge
But
creature.
by the
And that's how silent they are. Yeah.
yeah, but by the same token, the first whale shark I saw was in Philippines a long, long, long time ago, in the 90s. And we were doing a wall dive, me and some friends of mine, and there was a ledge in the wall where there was a skeleton of a turtle.
Oh, I
So
see. Okay.
all my friends went and they were looking at it, and the dive guide was showing them. And for some reason, I just looked out into the blue, and actually below me, deeper, and there was a whale shark cruising there. And I was screaming through my regulator to get the attention of my friends, so that they shouldn't miss it. And it was like magic. I mean, obviously, we know that underwater, it's very hard to, you can hear sounds, but you can't tell the direction. But all of them turned around and they actually managed to see the shark. It was literally like a submarine cruising past.
Cruising. And Venkat, it's amazing that, of course, you know much more due to, your background. But having said that, it's amazing that the largest fish in the ocean. So people know humpback whales, people know their behavior, people know where they give birth, they know Tonga, they know South Pacific, they know where they go, how they feed, everything. They know nothing about whale sharks, Venkat.
That's right. It's
Zilch,
one of the
zero.
mysteries of the sea. Yeah.
Only mystery. That's it.
Yeah. And the strange
Amazing.
thing is that even in India, there has been tagging done in Gujarat by Wildlife Trust of India.
Oh, I
And,
see.
I,
I see. Okay.
and they have actually tagged whale sharks which have gone both ways. They went down the coast of India, and some of them went towards Madagascar, and one
Wow.
actually went towards Australia. So the migrations are pretty long,
Long. Yeah.
and that's how they, by satellite tagging, they managed to find and track that, which is awesome.
Awesome. In
Unfortunately, in Gujarat,
Galapagos. Yeah. Sorry.
of course, the visibility is very, very bad. So we can't really
Dangerous.
see
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't see them, but there have been almost 105 whale sharks which have been released, which were caught in nets, and which are actually recorded as having been released over the years by the fishermen, because now the Indian government gives them compensation through the forestry department,
That's
which is a
fantastic.
good thing. They're surviving because of that. Otherwise, in the old days, they were actually selling them, taking the fins and selling them
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
$10,000 apparently, selling it to the
My
Chinese.
God.
Yeah.
My God. So Galapagos now has established that 90% of the whale sharks there are the largest ever seen on the planet. One. More than 90% of the 90% that they have seen, the biggest ones are females. Through special, those gadgets, sonar gadgets. What do they call it? Something which tells them that yes, there is a baby within and it's pregnant or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And they are convinced that that's some area around there is where they go. They have put tags on some of them, Venkat, but because the whale sharks dive so deep that most of the tags have
Failed.
come back. Yeah, they've been released once they go beyond a certain depth. But they're convinced that there is some area there where they give birth. Although they still
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. It's usually
Anyway,
around
thanks for this, Venkat. I thought
No
it's
problem.
beautiful on Whale Shark Day. I thought this was very nice. Yeah.
Some more information pertaining to India is even on the east coast, there are whale shark sightings, particularly near Pondicherry. So,
Seriously?
yeah, in fact, Rob was telling me that they have seen quite a few over the last few years, and it's become quite regular, amazingly enough. In the last 2, 3 years, there have been quite a few sightings. The animals have not been very big. They've been in the region of 6 meters, 8 meters, so they're juveniles.
All juveniles then, yes.
They're hanging just
yes.
off the coastline. Of course, like you said, I mean, everything with wildlife is, subject to the animal being there. So
Yes.
it's just potluck. Now we will come to the questions and answers.
I doubt if there are any.
There are. So
there are. I can't see any.
Rajan has just put a present saying, great presentation, Diggy, enjoyed it very much. Alexandra has joined us from Germany, and she's also thanking us, and she's appreciating the presentation, and she says hugs from Berlin. Hiren Jani has a question. He says, whale sharks also visit India, especially in the Arabian Sea. Are there any research and study going on in India? So WTI has a program of tagging, like I mentioned, and they have been studying them, but it is not very active. And the core team, which was actually doing the studying, who had actually gone to Australia and learned how to tag them, has now is no longer with them, no longer working with them. And I think it's a very expensive proposition because every tag costs about $5,000 US. And that's the reason.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the reason why I think they have stopped doing that. But they were the only NGO which was actually allowed by the forestry department to tag whale sharks. So even as much as we would like to go and tag and do more studies, it's going to be very difficult to actually get permission from the government to because it's an invasive procedure, unfortunately, and it does kind of stress the animal out a little bit. So that's the reason why they're not allowing it, which is fair enough. So Hiren says, yes, in Gujarat near Somnath, we are educating fishermen about how to release and support in compensation from forestry department. So the forestry department actually replaces the nets. So if a whale shark is caught, they tell the fishermen to actually release them by cutting off the
Cutting
net.
it off. Oh, wow. And then they'll replace. That's a
They
damn
replace
good
the net. So
initiative. Very good
that was the
initiative.
incentive that was given to the fishermen, and
A
they've
great
been following
initiative,
that.
yeah.
They have also. I was in Ahmedabad in August last year, where there was a whale shark conference, and thankfully they invited me as well. So I went over. There were a lot of people from all over the world who had come there, and they launched an app which they gave to the fishermen, in which they could actually video the animals, the fish, sorry, and they could also photograph them, and they could upload it directly onto the WTI website.
See, these are
Because,
things which are superb. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
are amazing because they had
Amazing.
real-time videos, and they also had the satellite locations where they were filmed and where they were interacted with. So there's a lot of work going on. Of course, there's still a lot more to be done. As you said correctly, that we don't know where they mate.
Nothing. They don't know much about anything. Yeah. Yeah.
But something for the future. Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at some more questions. Stunning photos. Thank you for taking the time to present. Enjoyed it. What's the reason you aren't allowed to scuba dive with whale sharks? Also, if they are fish, how come they hang around the shallows? So whale sharks actually feed very close to the surface, and that's why they generally hang around. And also when they are moving, they don't go deep and they travel. For some reason, they just move just below the surface of the water, and that's the way they do their migrations in general. And that's the reason that puts them in danger from propellers and surface problems from the collision with boats.
Correct. Absolutely right. And
The
in
reason-
Chandravasi, obviously, they have to be at the surface because that's where the food is.
Correct. The reason why you're not allowed in some places to scuba dive with whale sharks is because
No, most places, Venkat, nearly
yeah,
all.
yeah. There is also
Because
one place actually in Philippines. Diggy, do you remember that place? We were trying to do a trip to there. Not Oslo. It is another place where the fishermen also feed them, and there it is
Oh, yes.
prohibited. It
Yeah,
is strictly prohibited to dive with them. You can't dive with them.
No, but you can't
Oslo-
dive anywhere in the world, Venkat, from what I know, except
No,
here.
Oslo does allow. Oslo, we remember we saw divers sitting on the bottom, even though it was very shallow.
Yeah.
It was only 8 or 10 meters, and when the whale shark was actually vertical in the water.
So why would they not allow scuba diving? Is because people would tend to go and touch them or hassle them, I assume.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So they're trying to minimize the interaction, keeping it passive rather than active, which could possibly, also result in maybe a diver being injured.
Because
Accidentally.
they are very well behaved, but I can imagine a 16-foot behemoth trying to knock you aside.
Yeah. So that is the reason. And I think we have run out of questions and we are running out of time. So guys, unless there is any other question that you would like to ask, now is the time.
Anyway, thanks Coastal Impact, thanks SSI, thanks for the platform, and thanks for allowing me to share this. It was great, and I'm happy that people liked it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you SSI, as usual, for providing us this platform. We have a webinar again on the coming Saturday, which is, I'll announce that later because we lost all the presentation that we were supposed to do in the beginning of the session. But I will post that on the WhatsApp group on Facebook. I think somebody's again posted some question. No, Fatima is just mentioning about how happy she was to see the presentation. 1 minute. Beautiful to see interaction between whale sharks and humans. But since here they can touch and interact with the whale sharks, why can't they tag here and see where they migrate? They are tagging, as Diggy already mentioned. Conservation International has tagged whale sharks in Chandravasi Bay. And if you go on their website, you will be able to see the paths and the migration routes, etc., what they are doing.
They have a system also, Fatima, a Conservation International, where they allow people like us to go and look for particular whale sharks that they have tagged, and you can log in and in real time see where they are moving.
Yes. So I believe it is conservationinternational.org, correct?
Correct. Correct.
So you guys can go
Just
on
Google
that.
it. Just if you guys Google it,
Yeah.
you'll get it.
You'll find it. It's a huge website, and this is only a small part of it. They're doing a lot
Correct.
of other work all over the world.
Yes.
So do by all means look at that. Somebody else has posted something. How do I facilitate a journey to Papua New Guinea for diving? You can get in touch with us, and we
Yeah.
can arrange. If you want to join a group going there, we might be able to put a group together. Our website, by the way, is called scubacentric.com. Okay, so, or you can email Diggy, or you can even email me at scubacentric.com, and scubacentric@gmail.com, and we'll arrange that. Even if you want to go by yourself, we also arrange trips for individuals or small groups to go there. Okay. Whale sharks also visit India, specifically in the Arabian Sea. Are there any research? Yeah, I think we've done that. Seen that. There seems to be one last question. No, that is Sujita Thomas from CMFRI. Great presentation, enjoyed it. Thank you, Sujita, for joining us. Wonderful. All right, guys. So we're gonna wrap up the session now.
Thanks, Venkat. See you.
And
I'll log off now.
Yeah. Take care. See you guys. Thank you for joining
Bye.
us. Bye-bye. Bye.